I don't want a job. I don't want to work. Why do people act like that's a crazy thing to say? I didn't even ask to be alive.
They have given billions of dollars to mental health and the homeless population. You can't give them a choice. Either you take the resources that we're going to give you, or you decide that you're going to be locked up in jail. That's the way it has to be now.
Or involuntary lethal injection or something.
Please look at camera for entry.
$6.4 billion connected devices now serve as collection points, mapping and recording our daily routines, making a more secure and more invasive system. But who else is listening? Big Brother no longer works alone. Thousands of little brothers monitor and aggregate your every move, building a complete digital profile of you to be bought, sold, or stolen in an instant.
Okay, the time's 20 to 3, 14:40. I'm arresting you on suspicion of improper use of the electronic communications network.
Watch.
127 Communications Act, okay? So this is in relation to some comments that you've made on the Facebook page.
So let me get this straight. Work, $80 in gas, work, groceries, keep myself alive. Bounce house, $250. Work, unexpected bill, debt. I'm tired of donating my life!
Rose, how lovely. Thank you for the lollipops. Too spicy. Thank you for the corn. Wow, a swan.
Roses smell so good. Roses smell so good. Roses, no boyfriend has ever given me this much roses. Gang, 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 gang.
We stand on the brink of Armageddon, diseases for which we have no cure. Fundamentalist states who call for our destruction, nuclear powers over which we have no control. And even if we navigate these dangerous waters, we face other, even more inevitable threats.
Some people say we had it better in the past, and many would even argue that the world ended in 2012 or 2016, or perhaps in 2020 during the pandemic. But I would argue that this world has always been some kind of hell realm. We just were living in a temporary illusion that it wasn't. Basically, we have lived in a unique period of human history. Since the end of the Second World War, our civilization has been in what would seem a continuous state of growth and progress. Particularly in the Western world, we have seen our prosperity and technological development increase year by year for a long time. But this has also happened to developing countries in recent decades, even they have flourished economically and technologically. People back in the 1950s thought that history had ended and that we would have flying cars and space colonies by the current year, and some people like Elon Musk even suggested we'd already be on Mars. This kind of societal progress started to feel like the new normal, and people had hopes for a bright future, but unfortunately that's not how the Hell Realm works. All of this progress was actually due to some specific technological advancements that opened up increasing amounts of cheap stored star energy in the form of fossil fuels, such as coal, oil, and natural gas. Back in the day, you could invest 1 barrel of oil worth of energy to extract 100 barrels of oil from the ground. Nowadays, the low-hanging fruit have disappeared, and oil is more expensive to extract. For 1 barrel, you might only get 5 to 6 barrels or on average, but for example, the Canadian tar sands will only get you around 2 to 3 barrels. So some key fossil fuels like oil are becoming economically less viable. We also live in an infinite growth economic system that's driven by debt and compounding interest. If the economy doesn't grow, then we may enter a recession. If there is less growth or even negative growth, then we might enter a depression. If the economy still doesn't rebound and recover, there could be stagflation or even an economic collapse. At a base level, economic growth hinges on increasing production and consumption of goods and services. These could be physical or digital, but in either case, they require energy and natural resources. Even digital products are actually physical in the sense that they need servers, data centers, and other modern infrastructure to exist. But as the availability of cheap energy and material resources declines, more of these resources will be shifted to more so-called important parts of society, basically to those with economic power. In this case, it would be large corporations instead of the middle class. We can see this with the data center boom. These large data centers pop up out of nowhere and consume vast amounts of electricity and water, which causes the power bills and water bills to go up for average people, and they just kind of have to deal with it. That said, we have done something similar as humans. When human industrial civilization started taking off, we did not care much about animals or the environment. There were very few protections for them. It's not that we hated wildlife, but we wanted to build our towns and cities or expand them, and we would just go in, mow down the forest, and pour ungodly amounts of concrete and asphalt to build our homes and infrastructure. The wildlife would just have to deal with it. Now it's kind of our turn, I guess, and it's not like these corporations necessarily hate humans, it's just that they don't care and will do what they must to increase their profits. Of course, some people will say that renewables, particularly solar power and electric vehicles, will save the day and guarantee us a good green future, but personally I doubt that will happen, because 80% of our primary energy production is still from fossil fuels. We also consume more coal now than ever before, and even China is increasing their coal power production despite making serious gains in renewable energy. There's also over 1.5 billion fossil fuel powered cars that would need to be replaced, and it's not like everyone can just afford to buy a new electric vehicle. Thus far, it would seem that there is really no green transition, just a green addition. In some countries, particularly in Europe, it would seem renewables are replacing fossil fuel power plants, but what that actually does is that it decreases the market price of fossil fuels, and other countries elsewhere will use more fossil fuels at a discount. Also, now with the war in Iran, there might be more of a transition to coal power because a lot of the world's oil and natural gas actually comes from the Middle East. That said, society is also declining culturally and morally in a sense. I don't believe in objective morals such as those of any particular religion, but what I do think is important for a stable society is a shared set of morals that most people can agree on. This makes social interactions more predictable and provides some social stability, but due to the left-right internet culture war spilling over from social media, people are adopting radically different morals and social values, which is causing instability. I'm not a communist, but I would say late-stage capitalism is also a problem. In some countries, the top 1% are accumulating increasing amounts of wealth, like some kind of black hole absorbing every possible dollar, while the rest of society struggles to pay their bills, not to mention accumulating any sort of generational wealth for themselves. Because people have no more money to spend, and corporations must continue to make profits for their shareholders, they are squeezing the average consumer by nickel and diming them at every opportunity. But I think the decline in energy affordability underpins a lot of these issues. If there was more cheap, abundant energy available on the market, then there would be more room for growth, and people would at least have more money in their pockets. That said, perhaps then the bottleneck would be in some other critical resource as a limit to growth, and we are running out of other resources as well. So basically, we have been living in some sort of bubble for the past 80 years or so, when we had more wealth, resources, technology, and freedom than any time before in human history. We got used to living like this, and now that it's going away, we are feeling the decline, and it does feel like the world we knew has ended. But if you took a random person from the 2010s, America or Europe, and dropped them back in 1810 in their respective countries, then they would probably not enjoy the experience and reminisce about their old life back in the future. That said, I have to say that the current year is definitely more absurd than anything I've read about in history. The world was always a hell realm, but now we are in the clown world stage. Remember to like and subscribe and let me know your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video. Okay, thanks, bye.